Good evening, this is Nicholas from Gandora Gaming, and this is my big discussion video for the upcoming meta game. I included a shit ton of decks on this list. Honestly, there's pretty much too much to count. So right off the bat, I'm going to say my honorable mentions, and then we're going to go straight into the top 20 decks. There's a lot of honorable mentions, so let's just get straight into it. First things first, we have the decks that are decent, but definitely don't help by this metagame, and are definitely worse for wear just because they're just older strategies that definitely need an update. First things first, starting off, we have Eldritch. Eldritch, in my opinion, just needs some love. It needs a third wave of support. It's very outdated. I love that all the trap cards float, and it's a really cool deck, but as a strategy, there's just so many better trap decks in the format that I feel like playing Eldritch when you could be playing Trap Trick, Dynamorphia, Labyrinth. Technically, Runic's a control deck too if you play the purest version. So there's just too many better versions of this deck that I feel like, why would you play this, right? You know what I mean? Standing goes for, here again, Runic. Not the variants of Runic, but pure Runic as a whole, like Runic Stun, where you like tribute for a Vanity Speed. Really cool deck, really stun worthy, all that. But when there's so many more powerful variants of Runic running around, why would you stick yourself with like the worst one, the pure version, the one that like sets up a field spell, maybe 3 in hand, and like a Vanity Speed? It's just not that great. So personally, get Runic Pure out of this deck. Other decks that I want to talk about. These are like combo decks, but are like, why would you play this combo deck over others? Especially in the format right now. I feel like these decks are interesting. Definitely have huge potential, but no one plays them. Bee Trooper. Really cool deck. Got massive support. No one's playing it because no one understands insects, and there's not really a good insect finisher. So insects as a whole, yeah, I think they're insane, but they're definitely going into the honorable mentions category. Utopia, really cool deck. We got amazing support out of Maze of Memories. That makes the deck really consistently powerful. They like keep rebuilding their boards even after being destroyed. Only issue, we have a lot of XYZ hate this format. Not to mention, Droll is in this format, and we're main decking kaijus and board breakers. So I don't know. I just feel like the worst XYZ deck, like one of the weaker XYZ decks, isn't that great. So here we go. Madolche. Madolche is a really cool combo deck, but to be honest, Terra Lasso is the only thing keeping that thing relevant. It definitely needs a new modern update. The Vernisylphs definitely gave it life, but why would you play Vernisylph Madolche when you can play Vernisylph Super Heavy Samurai, Vernisylph Naturia, Vernisylph Amorphage, for God's sake? There's just so many better versions for the Vernisylphs. Why would you play Madolche? I feel like that engine is just a little too old and outdated. There you go there. Other inclusions. The Invoked engine. Really old. It uses your normal summon. It makes an Omni, which is cool. And I guess in like trap decks like Eldritch, it's not bad. But when the format's so fast and so powerful, and the trap cards are even so good, why would you play Invoked? Dominic Invoked, that whole variant, yeah, same thing. Don't play it. It's cool. You could definitely win some locals, but that's as far as that deck's going. Another deck I want to mention, Fluunderies. I definitely think this deck's all copium. Now that the Berry statue is banned, this deck, best thing it can do is set up a couple of, what's it called? Locks, which is like, you can play the Samorg round where you play anti-spell summon out the Samorg so they have no spells and traps. And a second day normal summon, you make like a stupid ass freaking Impen or whatever, but that version sucks. I just don't think Flu as a banished deck is that great. I think it's better than a lot of these decks, but Fluunderies, it loses the Droll, it bricks, and I don't know. It's just not that great. I do think that new spell card we got, the time rendering that gives us 2 normal summons, is insane for the deck. but I still want to put it past C tier. Other decks that I gotta include, Liberalmancer. I think Liberalmancer has huge potential, but right now, until there's a better version besides Mikonko Liberalmancer, I don't think that deck's that great. I think it's really cool as a consistent engine, but shit, Drytron's better, and Drytron's an honorable mention because that deck loses to the Bystials, it loses to Droll and Lockbird, which is the main thing this format. It loses to any, like, Nibiru. It loses to a lot of things. So, honestly, Drytron, you're also honorable mentions. Salad, honorable mentions. You are a really cool deck once the Super Horde comes out. Right now, you're just Babushka Turbo, and this format's way too fast for that shit. Tri Brigade, you are really cool, especially the Leerless. I almost want to put you in the top 20, but the issue of you is that you require your graveyard, and one of the best 3 decks in the format is literally a walking Macrocosmos. So until that deck lowers itself on the ban list, you're just here, buddy. You can't play through a macro. You literally just lose unless you open a board breaker. But yeah, so there's Tri-Brigade Leerless. Other decks I want to conclude in the honorable mentions. Tier Elements, really cool. Let the deck die already. It makes some really cool boards, but it still loses to every other combo deck that makes a board. Not to mention, it also just loses to Macrocosmos. Let the deck go. It kind of bricks sometimes as well, so just let it die. We had our fun. We had a whole format for it. Just let it go. Ninjas, I think they're really cool as a flip-based mechanic. I don't think they do enough for it to be meta-relevant. DDDs, cool too, but again, we have macro in the format. Or a pendulum deck so they can block our scales. Not a great time. Agnisters, I would say it has been B tier for like 5 formats now. And it actually could be listed as top 20. But going into a format where kaijus are going to be side decked, a deck that just like puts all its resources into a towers loses. Especially when Pearly is just a better version, because at least when they get kaiju, they still even have a Leerless Nightingale on field that's going to bounce too, and they have like 6 hand traps in hand, so you're set there. So yeah, I'm sorry, Agnister, until you become more like Kotalker, like more diverse boards, you're going to lose to a kaiju. Other decks I want to include in the top 20. Let's see. I think that's all of them. Sky Striker, yeah, that's another one. Why would you play Sky Striker as a spell control deck when Runic is still better as a spell control deck? Not to mention, you need your graveyard. Macrocosmos is a hell of a card. So, I think that's it for the honorable mentions. I said Speedroid. Virtual World, same thing. You got like 1 new card, and the card isn't that great. Plunder Patrol, hey, we're finally in the format where kaijus are already main decked. This should be your format, right? All these different attributes. A very diverse format. Yes, but you're not strong enough as a deck as a whole, and it takes an amazing pilot to get you through a deck, especially when the best version of Venture right now is like a Venture, not a Venture, my bad, Plunder Adventure, which isn't that great right now in a format where the Cherry Beast is being turboed out, or like Stereo's being turboed out. So that's really about it. I believe that's it for the top honorable mentions. Let me just make sure I have the top 20 down. That's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. One more honorable mention I have is Dynamorphia. Really powerful deck. I love this deck to death, but until it has some results, paying so many life points in a format where you can die instantly really sucks. The counter trap is amazing, but for right now, Dynamorphia, you're going to have to sit in the honorable mentions until you prove yourself. There could be a Dynamorphia Punk version coming out, but for now, you're just sitting here. Constellar Knights, same thing. You got a whole bunch of support, but I don't think you're that great. And that's really about it. Let's just go straight into the actual top 20 now. I spent like 10 minutes just going over the honorable mentions, because like I said, this format is very diverse, which I love diverse formats. One of my worst formats are when it's like 2 decks are the best decks. For example, Sprite and Tier Element format. I really like when any deck can have a chance to win. Like all these decks I've mentioned, they may be in like the top 50, but all these decks have the potential to win games. Straight up. Like all these decks. Salad, the Flu, Eldritch, Ninjas. All these decks are still really, really strong decks. And I'm really happy where they are, like, built-wise. But I just feel like there's just stronger versions of them, or just not their format for it. So let's just go into the top 20. So, time for top 20. First deck we gotta talk about, I would have to say, is Heroes. Heroes is such a cool, interesting, and heavily supported archetype that it's bound to be in the top 20. If Heroes isn't in the top 20, when literally it gets support every like 2 sets, then Konami's doing something wrong. I'll be honest with you. Hero is a really, really powerful archetype that makes a skill drain, that also makes a quick effect pop, and also makes a macrocosmos. That's really about it. It's a really, really cool deck. It has some really, really cool finishers. I definitely think that Maze of Memory gave us that hero guy, which was really, really great for the deck overall. But there's too many stronger decks this format that I feel like this is as far as this deck can go. But number 19, we have the Draco Slayers. I think Draco Slayers is a really, really cool deck. Reason why it isn't any further on the list, we have a better Pendulum deck in Super Heavy Samurais. The deck also kind of bricks sometimes, and Kashtira can literally block your Pendulum zones. Plus, we're also playing decks like Naturia Exterio and Naturia Beast that literally say no spells. So, there's a lot hating on this deck, but I still think like if this deck goes, it makes some really, really stupid boards. So that's why I had to list it at number 19. Number 18. This deck is really, really awesome. It has to be Danger Dark Worlds. Danger Dark Worlds is a phenomenal deck for destruction decks, and I still think this deck is crazy. I think it was top 15 until in this format. It's just the reason why I say it's now top 20 instead of top 15 is just because of how powerful Droll is this format. Next deck that I want to mention in this list would definitely have to be Trap Tricks. Trap Tricks are such a cool control deck that have very inappropriate art on them. They're so cool as a rank 4 strategy, as a control deck, but I think out of the top 20 control decks, it's definitely the weakest of the bunch. I think it's very, very cool. It makes 2 XYZs on like the high roll, and then like 3 or 4 back row, which is great. On a bad chance, though, we have a lot of XYZ running around. XYZ Encore is a card we're just main decking, or not main decking, or side decking some people. So they can just literally like return your Rafflesia back to the extra deck, or like send it to the grave, whatever that card does. And that can really suck for you, especially when this deck can lose to other things like that. So, I don't know. I think this deck's solid, but because it's the XYZ deck, and there's a lot of XYZ hate, the deck's here, and that's as far as it's going to go. Next on our list is Mana Dome. Now, the reason why I have Mana Dome here and not other decks is just because I personally don't know the ceiling of Mana Dome yet. I haven't had enough chance to play against the deck, so I can't tell you if it's better Sword Soul. This is also including... this is Mana Dome and all its variants. So this is also including... what's that? Scareclaw. This is also the Scareclaw list. So Scareclaw, Mana Dome as a whole, because they're basically playing the same engines. If you're playing Scareclaw, you're going to be playing the Mana Dome cards. If you're playing Mana Dome, you're playing the Scareclaw Visa Starflash cards. So this is where I'm putting it right now. I can definitely move up on this list, especially when a new support comes out. But as of right now, as a first wave, I just haven't seen enough of it to tell you if it's any good or any bad. Next on our list, we would have to have... I would have Sun Avalon Rika. Yeah, that's definitely the next on our list. Sun Avalon Rika. It's a really, really cool deck. And it does a lot of things that most decks don't do. It tributes your opponent's cards. It makes some really weird inboards where you're not really sure like what any of the cards do. So you don't know where to stop it or where to play into it. It's a very rare deck to deal with, because it's a deck that it's a plant archetype for one thing, so you don't even know what to hit, what not to hit. It's very out of your. It's the only plant deck on his list besides the Churia. It's very outside your wheelbox, and then it like plays through things weird. It loses when you don't expect it to lose. It's a very like out of left field deck, and that's why it's here. The chances of you running into a dedicated Sun Avalon pilot is very hard. There's not that many of them. Like, for example, there's one guy at our locals that comes like once a month, and he plays Sun Avalon. And he's the only person that plays Sun Avalon. And when he does great, because no one knows what his deck does, so they don't really know how to stop it. So that's what I would say there. It's a really cool combo deck, and if more people knew what it did, it would not be higher on the list. So that's where I have to leave it right now. Dinosaurs, I think they're insanely good until once they get the new support. But for right now, they're definitely top 20. I think dinosaurs are just solid as a whole. They're great. They don't really play with Kashtira that well, so this is as far as they're getting. But until their new support comes out, they're pretty solid. When they go, and yeah, Conductor's still taking names to this day. Marincess, that's our next deck we gotta talk about. Now, this is a really, really powerful deck. I can't lie to you. Marincess has the potential for greatness. It plays through so many things, it's crazy. The new Angeline card allowing you to have access to a free Link 2 or a Synchro 10 is also insane. So, Marincess as a whole is probably the strongest water deck we have going for us, which is pretty awesome. I wish it was better, but hey, what can you do? This is as far as Marincess can go, because one of their main things is that they make like an unkillable towers, like Agnister, but again, we're in a kaiju format, so is Marincess that great? Kind of, because they don't only end on towers, they also end on like the trap card, they also sometimes end on Totally Awesome. Now they can end on like Angeline Synchro, but I don't know. The deck still loses to a lot, so this is where we at for Marincess. Labyrinth. We gotta talk about Labyrinth. I don't think it makes the top 10. I don't think any trap deck at all makes the top 10. I think this format's definitely very combo oriented. I think this is as far as Labyrinth can go. It's a very, very powerful deck, very, very strong deck. But overall, it still has to deal with the fact that it ain't going to win every die roll. And Labyrinth going into a board, especially when the boards that people make are stupid and you can't really play like hand traps, really, really, really sucks. Don't get me wrong, you'll steal some games, but it does not look good for you when one of the best decks in this format literally makes the Churia Exterio in their combo. Like, what are you going to do against that? Like, it's literally strike or bust. And if you don't got strike, you just lose. So that's really what I got to say about that. Alright, so now it's time to go over number 11. This is the last deck that literally is right at the cusp of top 10. So for number 11, we got to discuss Ye Old... Well, actually, this is a very new deck, so it could be going up, it could be going down. This is just Bestial Synchro. So if you don't know Bestial Synchro, it's an OCG deck that exists, where basically it's a Bestial deck that turbos out Synchro 10s. And it ends on like Chaos Angel, and Dis Limited, and a whole bunch of really powerful cards. Now, personally, I haven't seen enough of it yet to go any further in top 20. But what I have seen of it, I would have to say that it's a very powerful synchro-based strategy. Using the Bestials to synchro climb, it's a very powerful monsters. So this is a very, very strong deck. Now, I do think it is weaker Dragon Link, and that is why I would have to leave it here at number 11. At the cusp of greatness, but I just feel like Dragon Link and the following 9 decks are just stronger. So now that we got all the 11 through 20 out of the way, and our honorable mentions, let's finally discuss the top 10. So for number 10, we have Sword Soul. That's right, Sword Soul is the weakest of the top 10. let's do this. Sword Soul, even though it gets some really powerful cards and what's it called, Wingo Worm and the Bestial. Actually, I don't think they can make a Chaos Angel. I just don't think they gain enough from this set compared to every other deck that's going forward. Every other deck went up 2 or 3 levels. This deck, I think it went up 1 level at most. So that's why Sword Soul has to be here. It just doesn't have enough high ceiling. It could still make 3 synchros. I heard my friend say he can make 4. But until I can actually see that, and I can play through a Nibiru before 4 synchros, I just don't think the deck's strong enough. Now, he's saying that there's a Bestial Sword Soul list that he's cooking up. I'll have to see it for myself to see if it's any good. But just on his word, I want to leave Sword Soul in top 10. I almost felt like to put it in top 20. Just because of how strong the top 20 are. I feel like one of them could easily get into the top 10. But for right now, I would have to say Sword Soul is at the cusp of entering the 11 or staying in the top 10. But it's definitely not near top 5. And let's just keep going. So number 9. For number 9, I would definitely have to give it to Dragon Link. Dragon Link is a very, very cool deck. And it's been meta for the last 2 or 3 years. No joke. Holy shit, ever since Rockets came out, Dragons haven't left the format. Even when they're not in the format, they're still in the format. Does that make any sense? They're still, hovering right there, ready to be good. As soon as anyone lets their guard down, Dragon's the best deck. That's literally where they are, and they still haven't left. But now they're officially in the top 10. Just because of Bestial Dispater and all the other synchro support we got in this set. This deck can turbo out Chaos Angel very easily. It can make some really stupid boards already. I don't feel like it can go any further just due to the fact that Dragon Link could definitely still run into some issues. And they don't really have a great time playing into a board. That's my only reason there. Not to mention, it's a very complicated deck. It's a deck that can, with a best god hand, and on seals pass because you played it wrong. So that's why I have to leave it here at number 9. It has potential to be top 5. But for right now, just because it needs a good pilot, I would definitely say it's top 10. For number 8. So number 8, I'm going to have to give this to Naturia Runic. Naturia Runic is still in the format. It's still powerful. It's still taking names. But it is no longer the best Earth deck in the format. We have now better Earth decks. Thus, here it is. Now that we have Naturia Exterior being more prevalent, the chances of them running into a Naturia Exterior or a Naturia Beast is even more high. So Runic-based builds just lose harder now. Which is a good and bad thing because Exterior is stupid and should be banned. But at the same time, I don't know. It's really complicated just due to the fact that nothing hit the deck. It's just there's so many more prevalent decks. For example, Pearly. What's Naturia's out the Pearly, the big towers? If it isn't playing the Kaiju guys, nothing in their main deck outs the Pearly dudes. The Pearly at 6,000 and it bounces 7 times. You're just not beating that, Naturia. You're just not. So that's what I would have to say there. I think it's still a really powerful deck. It's just out of all the decks, it's definitely weaker. So we'll have to go from there. Now, the deck actually surprised me. I'm not going to lie to you. It actually did because I thought it would be higher. It's still top 7, 6, whatever. But I thought it would just be higher. I would have to say Sprite variants. Yeah, no joke. I think Sprite is in the top 10, but I don't think it's top 5 right now. I think it's a very powerful deck. I think that it can make some really, really cool boards. Its comeback mechanic, it sucks right now. It has 2 options. Either it searches a starter for next follow-up and their board gets broken, or it searches for smashers for more interruption, but then once its board's broken, it's on top deck mode. And that's not really the best spot you can be. There's a lot of Sprite versions. I think the best version, in my opinion, right now in this format, was the Fur Hire Sprite Runic version. That deck was actually popping off in ways I never seen before, like draw 6 is draw 6, baby. But I think it can't go any further than that. I think it's a very powerful deck. I think it's a very strong deck as a whole. But I just don't see it going any further than that. Really, really cool deck. We'll just have to see where it goes from there. Alright, so now it's time to talk about number 6. Number 6, now this is going to be controversial, and this is bias. I'm not going to lie to you. These probably should be switched, because I think this deck might be better than my deck, but I still think my deck's better, Copium, but we'll just have to go from here. We have Mathmech. I know Mathmech at number 6 doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound good, especially how crazy this deck gets with the firewall stuff, but hear me out. I think the firewall stuff is solid. I think it's really, really strong, but I don't know if anyone knows how the best way to abuse it. If it's using the firewall stuff, it's just code talkers. And if we're talking about code talkers as a whole, that deck loses to a lot of things. It loses to Nibiru. It loses to Droll and Lockbird. It loses to a lot of things. Now, if we leave Mathmech where it is right now, let's say they just decide not to play the firewall stuff, or they play it as like a small engine, I still don't think as a small engine it raises the ceiling enough. So here's the thing with Mathmech. If you play the firewall stuff, it raises your ceiling, but it makes you more acceptable to things. Your boards are more like, they're stronger, but at the same time weaker, because they're more acceptable to dark rulers than you were before. They're more acceptable to things like that. The kaijus hurt more now all of a sudden, because you become a combo-based deck. Like, Droll and Lockbird doesn't usually hurt Mathmech, but once you introduce all the firewall stuff, now it kind of does hurt Mathmech. So, I don't know. If you play the weaker level version, like the current version right now before this access, I think the deck, compared to like how high the ceiling isn't there. But at the same time, as like, if you make it that high ceiling deck, I think it's still weaker than the higher ceiling decks. And I think it just loses to the same things those higher ceiling decks do. So this is where I have to put Mathmech at number 6. Now this is where it goes interchangeable. I have Punk Gold Pride for my number 5 or top 5. You could definitely put this at number 6 and put Mathmech as number 5. I really, really, really love my Gold Pride, so I have to include it in the top 5 here. And here it is, Gold Pride. I love this deck, baby. This deck combos off amazingly. The only bad thing about this deck is Droll. Droll hates on his deck really, really hard. But since Droll hates on literally almost all the top 5 decks, I'm okay with it, because this is just a Droll format. If their opponent has Droll and you don't have a way to deal with it, you just lose. You're just going to have to deal with that. That's just a custom thing in this game. And, yeah, I really, really do think that Droll and Lockbird is a problem, but we can definitely get around it. I think Gold Pride Punk ceiling is one of the highest in the game, besides the next deck we'll talk about. Well, not the next deck, but the deck after that. But I definitely think Gold Pride Punk is at the cusp of being top 3. It just needs more play testing, and we just need to figure out more variants of it. I feel like we have not reached the ceiling of this deck, unlike the other decks. Thus, we have potential to grow even better as a deck. So right now, that's why Gold Pride is at number 5. I think it's better than Mathmech. I feel like the biggest issue against going against Mathmech was always that they can pay life points to Heat Soul. Thus, it turns out the Gold Pride cards. But now that we have a continuous spell that pays life points for us, that's no longer an issue. Mathmech is not an issue for Gold Pride. And that's why I have to put Gold Pride Punk at number 5. Now let's talk about number 4. Number 4, I have Pearly. Pearly, the only reason I have it this high, honestly, Pearly could be number 6 and then go Mathmech and then go Gold Pride. It doesn't really matter. These 3 decks are kind of interchangeable because they're there, but they're not top 3, if that makes any sense. Like, for example, Pearly is a really, really cool deck. And when I played against my friend with it, I didn't realize how much of it's non-once per turns. And that is really the real reason why Pearly is how good it is. Because you can make a stupid board, but if you don't hit the cards right, especially since they're newer. And they get that continuous spell and adds back 3, it's like nothing happened. It's like you used all your negates and they still have a full hand. It's really stupid. So I have to say Pearly is definitely top 4, but I definitely think the 3 other decks are stronger and better. So this is where I have to leave it. Pearly still loses the Kaiju's. X-Blower still knocks it out. Maybe it's a little copium putting this high. Maybe it should only be top 6 and Mathmech and Gold Product should be higher. I don't know. I just feel like this deck's scary, and everyone's side decking a shit ton of cards for it, so that's why I have to have Pearly where it is. If it turns out to be worse, it'll go up. If it turns out to be a lot much more manageable, it'll go down. We'll just have to see. There's not enough data for me to tell you if Pearly's literally like top 3 or not. I think it's pretty strong, and the OCG is the best deck, but I just don't know if it's enough to get there, especially when the next 3 are just stupid. Next we have is Super Heavy Samurai. That's our number 3rd. Yep, didn't change. Super Heavy Samurai is an amazing, stupid deck, and I think the only reason why this deck is not number 1 is because it loses the draw. It can't place board breakers like Dark Ruler, Evenly, Lightning Storm, things like that, or spell and trap removal. That's the real reason. You can't play spells and traps. That's the only reason why this deck is not like S tier stupid. This deck is so versatile. It can make FTKs. It can make stupid wombo combo boards. It can make like other decks good. Like I heard there's like a Dolce version of this deck. There's like Earth Machine version of this deck. There's like OTK versions of this deck. There's so many ways to play Super Heavy Samurai. It's absolutely insane. Not to mention, as an engine, it's amazing. The only issue? No spells and traps, baby. And that is where it is staying at number 3. Until it can prove itself better than Kashtira and Branded, it can't go any further. Those decks can play spells and traps and board breakers. Your deck can't. It's going to be really hard for Super Heavy Samurai to beat into an established board. I just personally think that. Now, prove me wrong. We'll see if it goes up or down. Pearly may be better. Pearly may not be better. I just feel like just how high the ceiling is for this deck, it's going to be really hard for other decks to top it. But we have 2 more, so they do. Next, I would have to say, has to be Kashtira. And I know that's actually controversial because everyone's saying Kashtira is the best deck this format. I would disagree. I think Kashtira is definitely the second best deck this format. I think it's solid. I think it's insane. I think it's a huge floodgatey deck that locks out zones and has a great matchup for every other deck lower than it. It has a great matchup. Macrocosmos, blocking pendulum scales. It can play board breakers. It can play main deck kaijus like Lava Golem. It's a very, very cool and powerful deck. Biggest issue is honestly its ceiling. Like yes, it like locks out all your zones, but it plays into like too many things. Like the Biru hurts it. The Kashtira that's gonna be what's it called? The shock. What's the level 1 fire kaiju? You know what I'm talking about. The ones that's like Karikara. Literally tributes their whole board away. They lose the Dark Ruler. They lose to Evenly Match. There's a lot of cards that like really mess up a Kashtira's play, and they can't really play around it. So that's why I have Kashtira at number 2. Just because, yes, they can make some cool boards, but they don't make negates. And because they don't make negates, they do kind of just lose the back row removal. Or just like big board breakers. Like a board breaker is just going to ruin a Cash's day. So that's why I have to say Cash is here. And now for number 1, the deck you've all been waiting for, Branded. Holy shit, Branded got stupider. I didn't think that was possible. Oh my god. Now they can synchro summon on your turn. And they can fusion summon on your turn. This deck just does everything. It can lock you a given puppet 2 different ways now. It can literally play through Macrocosmos because the Despia cards don't care. If anything, they plus when they're banished. This deck is stupid in all the wrong ways. And I hate it and love it at the same time. Like, I definitely think Branded as a whole, is definitely the best deck in this format. No joke, it just has too much going for it. The cards it got for this set was insane. The gimmick lock still exists. Everything is stupid that any other deck can do. This deck can do, but better. It's a board breaking deck. It can do that. It can make like Chimera and just like blow up your field. It can make a stupid board going first. It can play through floodgates. It doesn't really lose the draw sometimes. Like some hands do. Some like Highlander versions of the deck definitely do. But like other versions don't lose the draw. The deck literally is very flexible. It plays through a lot of things. It's not even like fusion locked anymore. You can make synchro. Well, you don't really make synchros. You kind of make them on your opponent's turn using the level 6 fusion guy that tributes itself to like special summon one from the extra deck. But still, that's still stupid. So yeah, that's all I gotta say about that. Brandon, best deck in this format. I hope Konami gives us a ban list that nerfs it to the dirt, but I don't think that's going to happen. So, good luck with everybody. Brandon's the best deck. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.